Hello students, coming to academic year 2021, second BTech semester 2, JNTK Kakinada R19 regulation. Java programming. Currently we are discussing about Unit 3, Chapter 2, Inheritance in Java. And this inheritance chapter is composed in 4 videos, video 6, video 7, video 8, video 9. Currently we are in video 7. These are the topics to be covered in Unit 3 of Chapter 2, Inheritance. The one, a superclass variable can reference a subclass object. And this is one important to understand the relation among the superclass and subclass with respect to this inheritance technique or methodology, and how this reference of a particular class can hold the things can access of the object, that it may be members of the object, members of the class through object. And next one is super keyword and the usage of this super keyword, how this super keyword is useful in inheritance in particular situations. And coming to next one, constructor method in the concept called inheritance, how these constructors having some special type of features in specifically in inheritance. Next one, method overriding, and we are aware of the overloading concept with respect to methods and with respective methods and constructors of the classes. First one, a superclass variable can reference a subclass object. And see the concept. A reference variable of a superclass can be assigned to a reference to any subclass derived from that superclass. That it means generally we define reference classes to any reference variables to any class like this. For example, consider A is a one class, and I am defining this A is a reference to this superclass. Consider this A as a superclass. And we have another object like another class like B that extends A, that extends A. So now this class B becomes subclass. And when we are defining an object or a reference called small b like this, and we can assign this superclass or assigned or a superclass can be assigned to a reference to any subclass derived. That we can assign this superclass reference to any subclass like this. Or maybe you can assign the subclass reference to like this one. And this subclass reference can be assigned to superclass reference. Okay, here it is important to understand that it is the type of reference variable and not the type of object that it refers to, not the object, and we are trying to see the type of reference variable, that is the derived type, nothing but a class type. So when we are defining this A as a reference variable of class type A, and B is a reference variable of class type B. Okay, so see this one here. That is, when a reference to a subclass object is assigned to a superclass reference variable, and this statement is very important. We are going to see the program example for this statement, and this is the concept that a subclass object is assigned to a superclass. Actually, that it is, this one is true. Now A is a reference variable of class superclass A, and B is an object or a reference variable of class B, and we are assigning this subclass object to a superclass reference. And when we do this line, then we will have access only to those parts of the object defined by the superclass. Defined by the superclass. If you have any little bit confusion, come to this example program that it can clear object. Now come to here. Consider a class A, an existing class A, and I have an instance variable of this class is I. And class B extends a class A, then this class A becomes superclass and class B becomes subclass. And this subclass B can access any member defined in the inside of this superclass A. And this subclass having one instance variable J. So these are the behaviors and properties of both class superclass A and subclass B. And coming to here, this class reference variable, this is a main class because this class contains the main method. And this is for creating an object of a subclass. B is a subclass. I'm creating an object of this subclass. As a subclass object, X, it can allow to access the superclass member as well as usual, it can access subclass member. So that's why X dot I equal to 10, X dot J equal to 10. Both are valid. So X is a subclass object can allow to access both the class members. And I'm displaying those two variable instance variable values in this statement using system.out.println. And here I am creating one reference variable of any object of this class. And here, okay, now come to here this situation. And I'm going to create a reference variable to superclass like this. A space Y. Y is a reference variable to superclass A. And I'm assigning this object of subclass X, assigning to reference variable of a superclass. And as usual, as a reference variable of superclass, it can allow to access I. This I variable instance variable of class A superclass, as it is a valid. But when we are going to access this one, Y dot Z equal to 40, as J is a member of subclass and Y is a reference variable of superclass, even though we are assigning object of subclass to a reference variable of superclass, but it completely not allowed to access any subclass member through superclass reference, because that superclass does not have any knowledge of the subclasses defined under the superclasses, and this gives compile error. And this is the when these are as given comment like this here, it gives simply output as this one I value and J value to object of subclass. So value of this output of this one is 10 and 20. And we can move on to the execution part of this one. Now I'm going to check this reference value of reference class name. So go to the execution part. Coming to command line, command prompt for executing. What is my class name? Reference. So this is Java C reference.java. So no errors. As it can happy to execute. And I'm going to execute, and you will get the output like this: 10, 20. Got it? Whereas coming to this 10, 20 for this subclass objects, and 30 will display like this when I'm trying to display this y dot I as it is also simply display 30 on the screen. Next concept is next topic, super keyword. And super keyword is introduced in Java specifically for the usage of things like coming to here. Whenever a subclass needs to refers to its immediate superclass, it can do so by use of super keyword. That it means here it is the first uses. Super keyword can be used to refer immediate parent class instance variable. That it means whenever we have superclass instance variables, that the same name instance variable going to define in subclass, and this comes as a problem of name convention. So that's why whatever the member like instance variable defined in the subclass, it hides the superclass instance variable with same name. So this is a problem in generally occurs in the inheritance and or class hierarchy. So to overcome this situation, super keyword helps you to refer immediate parent class instance variable. That is the first usage of this super keyword, right? And this super keyword has two general forms. The first one, it calls the superclass constructor, and we use this super keyword to call this, use it to call the superclass constructor, and it provides in Java of defining classes, class hierarchy, and as well as in the concept of inheritance. And the second is used to access member of superclass that has been hidden by a member of subclass. I told you the first one now. So when we are defining member of a class or in a subclass with the same name of the member of the superclass, that subclass member automatically hides the member of the superclass. So that member may be instance variable or that member may be a class method. In both these situations, super keyword helps you to invoke the superclass member instance variable or a member of member as a class method. And next one, the third one, as I told you that super, and we use this super keyword followed by parenthesis, pair of parentheses, and can be used to invoke immediate super parent class constructor. And these are the three type of uses. And in a two general forms, we can use this super keyword in Java programs when we are implementing inheritance among the classes to construct class hierarchy in our programs. Here coming to the first uses here, the first form of using super keyword, and one of the uses of super keyword is using this super keyword to call superclass constructors. So how it is going to see? A subclass can call a constructor defined by its superclass by use of the following form of super. This is the first form of the super keyword. Super keyword followed by parenthesis. Inside you can give some argument list. Right? We'll see how this super keyword used to call the superclass constructor. Here this argument list specifies any arguments needed by the constructor in the superclass. So this argument list specifies, and why we are passing these arguments to this super keyword as a inside this parameter here. So the arguments actually that needed by the constructor defined in the superclass, and we are using that constructor for the purpose of taking instance variables or accessing those member of the class through constructor, and it is the concept called reusability, and I will explain you the process in the example program. And this super must always be the first statement executed inside a subclass constructor. Okay, to use this super for calling the constructor of superclass, in subclass where you are using this super inside of any subclass constructor, this super statement must always be the first statement executed inside a subclass constructor. So this is a mandatory condition to use this super keyword to call superclass constructor. Coming to the example program. Coming to this example program of super keyword uh, for using this super to call superclass constructor. So coming to here, class A having two instance variables A and B, and I have a constructor with two parameters to initialize this A and B instance variables of this class A. So when we are defining class B and as a subclass of this superclass A, existing class A, by using extends keyword, we are implementing inheritance among these two classes A and B. Now A is a superclass, A is a superclass, and B is a subclass. Next one, inside this B, it has one instance variable C. And see the magic of using this super to call the superclass constructor. Here this B, class B constructor with three parameters. This X and Y are used to initialize the instance variables of class A, and this Z parameter argument of this class B constructor initialize instance variable of subclass B. Okay, Z is initialized to C. And what is the use of this statement? This super comma X comma Y means this X and Y are passing to this super to call the constructor of the superclass, that it is this one, and this super keyword calls the constructor of this superclass, and passing these two values are initialized this one, that it means of no need of writing these instructions of this initializing inside this B class constructor, because as a subclass of this one, it can call this constructor for reuse of initializing the instance variables of this class B object. Got it? So this is the main usage of this super keyword to call superclass constructor. And one method defined inside this class B for displaying these ABC values. This is the behavior of subclass. One constructor using super keyword for calling the superclass constructor, right? And one method to display these instance variables of superclass AB and instance variable of subclass B. And coming to the main class demo, inside this main method, we are creating an object of subclass B by passing three arguments, parameter list. Here, these three values are passed into the constructor B here, and inside this super keyword is used for calling the constructor of class A, and this 10 and 20 will pass to the constructor A to initialize instance variable A and instance variable B, and that 30 is initialized to instance variable C. And when we are calling this display method using this subclass object N, it simply displays these values ABC on the screen. That it means 10, 20, 30. Very simple to understand. This is one of the use of using super keyword. Coming to the execution part of this program. So remember this class name demo. Okay, now coming to this command prompt console to execute this demo program, right? Okay, javac demo.java, right? execute Java space demo. So that is 10, 20, 30. Got it? And easy to code this type of feature usage in the Java programs. Next one, using super to call superclass constructor is already over. Next one, a second use of super keyword is accessing the member of a class. Here the second form of super acts somewhat like this keyword. This keyword. Here, except that it always refers to the superclass of the subclass in which it is used. Got it? And this general form of this super usage for accessing the member of a superclass, and when it's going to get the problem in the naming convention, defining member of a class uh, inside subclass, member name same as in the superclass member defined, right? So here that member can be either a method or an instance variable. A member can be either a method or a other an instance variable. This second form of a super is most applicable to situations in which member names of a subclass hide members by the same name in the superclass. This point is very, very important to understand the uses, second uses of this super keyword. So that it is what I'm saying clearly. This super keyword is helpful to access the superclass member that is hide by the subclass member with the problem of having same name. Coming to the example program of this one, consider this simple class hierarchy that it means inheritance. To understand the second usage of this super keyword, when we are having the same name in the superclass for a member, either it may be a member or an instance variable, and the same name we are having in the subclass also. This name of convention hides the superclass member. So coming to this superclass A, we have an instance variable I of type integer. Now create a subclass by extending class A. Extending class A. So here class B is a subclass, class A is a superclass. Using this extents, we can achieve inheritance among these two classes. Here it is, I am having the same instance variable I with name I in subclass. So this I hides the I in A. Understood? This is the problem of having member name same in the superclass as well as in subclass. That member may be a instance variable or a method. Now this example illustrates about the instance variable with respect to this super keyword. Coming to this constructor B of subclass, taking two arguments to initialize both the instance variables here, subclass instance variable I and superclass instance variable I. Coming to in the constructor of this subclass, so we are trying to access this I of instance variable of superclass, and to initialize this one, I have taken two arguments in this constructor B. So using this small a to initialize the instance variable of superclass A. So to access this one, actually this was hidden by the instance variable I of subclass. So to access this superclass instance variable, I can use super keyword, super dot operator followed by instance variable name or instance variable of the superclass. So super dot I here, this it means of I instance variable in class A. Now you can access a subclass instance variable I directly like this. I equal to B. This is means of I in B. So understood, this is the usage of super keyword in subclass when it having the same name to the member, the name similar to the name having to the member of class superclass A. And show method here, it displays both the instance variable of superclass and subclass. But to access this instance variable of superclass, you should use super keyword followed by instance variable name. That is same as subclass instance variable I. Got it? And coming to the main class, coming to this inside main function of this main class, we have created one object of subclass by passing two values 1 and 2. This one integer value to initialize instance variable of class A, and the second argument integer value of this constructor used to initialize the instance variable of B. But the problem here it is both instance variable names are same. So this subclass instance variable hides the instance variable of this superclass. That's why we are using super keyword. So that it coming to this calling of show function to display these values, or how these values are initialized at the instance variable of superclass A and superclass B with same names. So subobject dot show, this invokes the show method of the subclass. So simply this program displays the output of the following like this. So I in superclass, that it is 1, I in subclass 2. Got it? So this is the second usage of this super keyword, and solving the naming convention problem using inheritance when we are defining members in both superclass and subclass with same name. Got it? And this same process is applicable to the method also, and we will discuss this in the next topic clearly. Now this example illustrates you how to use this super keyword to access the instance variable having the same name as a member in the superclass and same member with the same name in the subclass also. Got it? And coming to one note point here, super keyword can also be used to call methods of superclass that are hidden by subclass. We will discuss in this in method overriding concept. That is the concept in the next one. In this video, we will discuss there about this, how to access member methods of a class of superclass using super keyword. Okay, next topic, constructor method and inheritance. Constructor method and inheritance. So here, when we are calling constructors and using this inheritance concept among the classes, how these constructors can be called with respect to the objects creation of subclasses or superclasses or like that. Here, coming to here, when a class hierarchy is created using inheritance, in what order the constructors for the classes that make up of hierarchy called? That it means hierarchy we can say in already single inheritance, one superclass and one subclass, multi-level, one superclass, one subclass, and that subclass can act as a superclass to the next level subclass. So coming to the example one to understand this one, given a subclass called B and a superclass called A, is A's constructor called before B's constructor or vice versa? This is the question we can raise in our mind when we are creating classes hierarchy using inheritance. So the answer to this question is that a class hierarchy, in a class hierarchy, constructors are called in order of derivation from superclass to subclass. That it means when we have the inside of this implementation of classes hierarchy using inheritance class hierarchy, the first calling of these constructors based on the derivation of the classes from super to subclasses. So first it calls the superclass constructor, then only it calls the constructor defined in the subclass. So this order of calling is important. Remember this point. Further, since super must be the first statement executed in a subclass constructor. And we know this point well when we are using this super keyword to call the constructor of a superclass inside subclass constructor. This statement is the must be the first statement, right? This order is the same whether or not super is used. When we are using super to call the superclass constructor or not. If you are not using that superclass constructor, super keyword to call the superclass constructor, what will happen? See this one. If super is not used in subclass constructor to call the superclass constructor, then the default or parameterless constructor of each superclass will be executed automatically. This point to be remembered when we are creating a class hierarchy. To understand this one, I'm just giving multi-level inheritance example. So consider this simple scenario of class hierarchy. A is a superclass and B is a subclass extending superclass A, and C is a subclass extending the properties of class B. So this is multi-level inheritance. Here this class having constructor like this, right? And this class having constructor like this, and this class having constructor like this. When we are creating an object of this class, then the order of calling constructors is from superclass to subclass. So to create object of this subclass C, right? So to create object of this class, the constructor calling, the order of constructor calling is first this constructor, superclass A constructor will call first, and this constructor call next, and this constructor call next. So why these constructors call automatically for the creation of object C? That it means the default or parameterless constructors. Here all these are considered as the default constructors. So if super is not used, then the default or parameterless constructors of each superclass will be executed automatically. Understood? Coming to the example program to more understand this one, what I said as an example of this constructor methods, calling constructor methods in inheritance mechanism. And consider this as a class A having one constructor inside A's constructor, A class constructor. And I'm having another class B extending existing class A. Now B becomes subclass and A becomes superclass. So this subclass B having one constructor displaying the statement inside B's constructor. And I'm having another class C extending the properties of class B. Now B becomes and acting as a superclass, even though it's a subclass to A. Now it becomes superclass to class C. And this class C having another constructor of this one C constructor in displaying inside C's constructor. These are the behaviors and properties of the classes defined here, A, B, C. And coming to the main class, inside this main function, I'm just creating an object of this subclass C. Then see the output, automatically the constructors, automatically this one, understood? Automatically whatever the constructors define, default or parameterless constructor defined inside superclasses and superclasses to this subclasses, all the constructors will fall in order. That it means superclass constructor, then B class constructor, then C class constructor. You can see here the constructors are called in order of derivation. What this class first derived class is A, next one B is derived and extending properties A, next C is derived as a class extending properties B class. Understood? Next one, coming to method overriding. This also a wonderful concept and most important feature added in Java to implement the powerful designing of programs using object-oriented programming languages like Java. And we know that method overloading concept. Then what it mean of overriding? First, coming to method overloading. In any class, methods are defining with same name. That it means we are defining methods more than one with same name. But the compiler differentiate those methods having with the same name with the parameter list. They differentiate these overloaded methods by their parameter list or the return type. And that concept is already covered and well known to everyone. So how this method overloading implemented in the classes. Then coming to this method overriding, it is also similar like to overloading, but this concept is used mainly in constructing class hierarchy or inheritance. Coming to this point, in a class hierarchy, when a method in a subclass has the same name and type signature as a method in its superclass. Keep in mind that point is very clear. When a method in a subclass has the same name and type signature, both should be matched, right? Then the method in the subclass is said to be override. Is said to be override the method in the superclass. The point is very clear. When we have a method in subclass having the same name and type signature similar to the method defined in the superclass, then we call that subclass method is called as override method. When an overridden method is called from within its subclass, it always refer to the version of that method defined by the subclass. As it is, because of this, subclass method completely hides the superclass method. When we are calling this overridden method within its subclass, it will always refer to the version of that method defined by the subclass only. Got it? But what about the version of the method defined by the superclass? Will be hidden by this subclass method. This was concept already seen the similar type in the super keyword in this concept, right? Coming to the example point of view, how this method overriding can be achieved in class hierarchy. Say this one. This is the first case. Class A having one method, show method, displaying statement like hi CSC. This is the behavior of class A. Class A behavior is it having one member method like show, it displaying the statement hi CSC. Then coming to one subclass is defined, that is B, extending this existing class A. Now B is a subclass, A is a superclass. This inheritance is achieved. One class hierarchy is created here. Inside this class B, having this method with same name, the method having in superclass show. So this subclass method is called overridden method, override method, and this hides the same method defined in the superclass. So it displaying the statement like hi KHIT. Got it? The behaviors of superclass and subclass. Coming to the main class, override one. Inside this main function, we just created one object of this subclass X. And using this X, I'm going to call the show method. I'm calling the show method. So the control completely confusion with this, which show function will be invoked to execute this, to reflect to this execution statement of this statement. So because X is a subclass object, allowed to access any method defined in the subclass as well as the superclass. And both the members in subclass and superclass having same method name and same return type and signature of this function defined in the subclass and the signature of the method defined in the superclass, both are same, exactly matching. The concept is called method overriding. This concept is called method overriding. So how this function object invokes which show method, that it is superclass or subclass. So no doubt at all, this method overriding concept, inside this method overriding concept, this subclass overridden method hides the method defined in the superclass. That's why this statement, this show of the using X object, this calls show method defined in the class B subclass only. Then simply it displays the high KHIT. High KHIT. Understood? Next example of this method overriding. And the problem in the previous program is this superclass method is hidden by the subclass method show. So how to overcome this one? So coming to the second example program. So coming to the same here, superclass having show method displaying high CSC, subclass B extending the properties of A and having show method and displaying high KHD. But I want to call this superclass constructor also. But that only possible through creating object of this superclass. But this subclass object is not allowed to access this show method of superclass directly in that like this one. But it is possible to call the superclass show method inside of this subclass method like this. This is the statement. Super.show. So here this super allows us to call the superclass method show. So here inside this subclass method or in this scope of this class B subclass, using this super keyword, it automatically invokes the superclass method inside this subclass method. So coming to this one, in main class of this program, inside main function, just create an object of this subclass and call this x.show. So no doubt at all, it calls subclass method, and it calls show in B, but it automatically inside this show method, it calling superclass method also. That's why the output of this program is high CSC, high KHIT. Coming to the note point here mentioned, if you wish to access the superclass version of an overridden method, you can do so by using super keyword like this. Super keyword like this. Got it? And here super.show, this statement calls the superclass version of the show method. Got it? Clearly understood? Next one. Coming to the another case here. So having superclass A show method high CSC and class B subclass extending the properties of existing classes A. And here I'm having same method name show and return type also same. But here this subclass show method having one argument string message and it displaying KHIT along with this argument passed to this show method message and high KHIT. Got it? So this concept this process here not related to this method overriding. This concept is called method overloading because this method having same name, here also same name, same type, but the argument list is different compared to this methods of superclass and subclass. So this concept is called overloading in the inheritance concept. Both methods are different. There is no concept here called overriding. Got it? And coming to the main class, and when we are using this inside this main function, and I have created object of this subclass B, and I'm calling x.show. It no doubt at all, it calls the show method defined inside class superclass A. this method. This method will call invoke in this at this instruction. This calls show method in class A, superclass A. Extort show by passing string argument, it goes to the control verifies in subclass or superclass verifies the show method with string argument. So as this is available in the base subclass, so automatically this method is invoked at this instruction of follow x dot show passing hello. This calls show method in B class, B subclass. So automatically this superclass show method displays high CSC, and this x dot show method passing hello as a message, and this message also displaying with the high KHID, that it means hello high KHID. So this is a simple concept of overloading in the inheritance and creating class hierarchy. Method overriding occurs only when the names and type signatures of the two methods are identical, and both name and type of the methods in superclass and as well as in subclass only identical, then only the method overriding concept can be implemented, possible to implement. If they are not identical, then the two methods are simply overloaded. This the concept is called overloaded in a class hierarchy. Right? These are the references, and thank you.